Hello and welcome to week 12 of our online class. We're this week discussing the final three chapters in Emily Towns' book, Womanist Ethics and the Cultural Production of Evil. And I wanted to spend this mini lecture this week really providing a little bit of explanation for part of how she defines evil. If you remember her definition of evil as society stomping on one's neck and then wondering why they're crying out in a structural kind of way, I wanted to unpack a little bit of what she means by in a structural kind of way. Now, in order to understand how to make sense of structure within society, I want to use an analogy. And the analogy I want to use comes close to my heart because I'm a builder by trade as well. I built several houses in the Denver area. And let me start that over. I'm going to talk about the structure of a building as dictating how we operate and live within that building. And hopefully that makes sense. We can make that make sense in a societal kind of a way with our laws or regulations, our mores, our stereotypes, and the other areas, especially in chapter 6 that Towns unpacks with respect to policy. But a building can be constructed in several ways, and there are some common building practices. And one of the most standard ways is, I have this wall behind me, and there's drywall on this wall. And if I were to deconstruct this wall, taking the drywall off, what I'm going to find on the inside are a series of wooden studs, and some buildings have metal studs, some have concrete posts. But by and large, this kind of a structure is very common within residential homes, for example. And the way that we design and build from the blueprints, put the walls in the right places according to the plans, put the bathroom over here and the kitchen over here and the bedrooms here, all of the things that go into making a structure livable. That structure, that plan, and where things are put is largely dictated, or it largely dictates, rather, how we operate and move within that space. So if you think about Loyola Hall on campus, for example, one of the most poorly designed buildings for higher education that we have on our campus. These massive, ugly hallways with carpet that funnel us in a U shape, and all of the offices and classrooms spaces are off to either side of that central hallway. And you've got the two bathrooms on either end of the long hallway. And you walk through that building, and if you've dealt in that much in that building, how clunky and cumbersome it is, and because the structure of the building itself is just not that conducive to flow and to having places that aren't on a bench in the hallway to sit and study or wait for a class or whatever. And these aren't the only ways that buildings can be put together. Google the Denver Art Museum extension that Daniel Libeskind designed back in 2005 or 6. One of the things that Libeskind said is when he came up with a concept for this really radical ship-prow type titanium-clad structure extension of the art museum, he wanted to have... Sorry, there's a dog barking in the back. It's really hard to get just 10 minutes to myself. Libeskind wanted... or the concept for Libeskind's design of that building was 2 lines going for a walk. Okay? Now, because he wanted to envision, or wanted to concretize that vision of 2 lines going for a walk, he and the building team had to totally rethink how a structure is put together and how it can from an engineering standpoint, be a sound building that's not going to fall down. And so they did the work. They put in the work, and you don't have this same drywall with studs that are 16 inches apart from one another like you would have. You don't have normal structure in that new building because they had to rethink and reimagine and then relearn how to put a building together to make the two lines going for a walk concept a reality. Now, if the structure of a building helps impact and determine how we act, behave, and use a space, the same principles can apply to the structures that help form our social fabric, the social fabric of our communal life within a nation, within a smaller community, within your family unit. Okay? So we have laws and policies that help structure, that help govern the ways that we interact, right? We put our roads in certain ways, and we have crosswalks and then laws against crossing when you're not in a crosswalk, right? And that helps determine how we act together, right? And one of the key insights that Emily Towns is trying to bring to our attention is the very fact that if our laws, and she doesn't say this specifically, this is in the background of what she's talking about, but if our laws and our social fabric was founded upon unjust principles, i.e. slavery, owning other human beings, using those human beings to make a profit because your workforce cost is nil or minimal, right? And then you have the Civil War, and you've got Jim Crow after Plessy versus Ferguson, and we created this structure for so many years and operated according to these structures that determine who has access to the equality that our Constitution talks about, who is, if not disallowed access, whose access is made difficult to that same equity, right? If you've ever had to apply for food stamps, for instance, or any other social program, the processes are so convoluted that, especially if English is not your first language, it's nearly impossible to navigate those structures. And therefore, access to the things that might help bring a little bit of balance in society is stymied all along the way. So when she talks about reimagining, when she talks about dismantling the fantastic hegemonic imagination, it's like we're tearing out these walls and removing the walls so that we can flow better as a society. All right, I hope that helps. Please continue with the high level of engagement that we've had the past few weeks. I've been enjoying our discussions, even though we're not face to face.